Okay, good morning all of you. Any questions related to whatever we have covered? Otherwise, let me get started. So we were discussing about bond and anchorage related thing. Yesterday, I skipped this example, and here basically a combination. First of all, you need to calculate whatever development length or lap length that is required, and afterwards here it is illustrated, a method is illustrated to make use of combination of two kinds of you can do welding as well as lapping over a certain portion. So how to do that, that is what is illustrated in this example. So let's go through it, and please note that whatever we are covering as a part of this basic course, we are actually covering some few basic concepts, but you need to refer several books as well as you need to take advanced courses to gain more knowledge in that. Okay, so let's go through this example. A reinforced concrete column of a multi-storied building is reinforced with 36 mm diameter longitudinal bars and with ties at regular intervals. Anyway, we have not looked at design of column, but we will be looking at it before we the end of this course. Just take whatever information that is given here. Basically, it is 36 mm longitudinal 36 mm diameter bar, okay, and assuming M20 grade of concrete Fe415 HYSD steel, calculate lap length required. That is going to depend on your development length, okay, and specify. The second part of the question is specify the method of reducing the lap length to reduce the quantity of steel, because this is 36 mm diameter bar. Okay, you can imagine for unit length how much steel is going to be there. So how to reduce this lap length? Not only that, when the diameter of the bar is more, when you are trying to lap two bars, the space occupied is going to be also be more, and there may be congestion of reinforcement. Okay, so there are other reasons as well. So now let's look at how to proceed with this problem. The data that is given in the problem statement, that is what is noted here. And with this, you can go to your IS code. Development length, LD, is given by this, which is going to depend on diameter of the bar, maximum stress in the bar, sigma S, okay, or stress in the bar at the section considered. Usually we are going to consider maximum stress, and 4 times tau BD. Tau BD is going to depend on the type of bar, whether it's plain bar or deformed bar, whether the bar is in tension or in compression. And here it is reinforced concrete column, so we can assume the bar is going to be in compression, and the bar is HYSD bar, and the grade of concrete is given as M25. So this is the tau BD value for plain bar in tension. This 1.4 we need to multiply with 1.6 to get for deformed bars, and also again multiply whatever value we get with 1.25, because the bar is going to be in compression in column. Okay, so that is how you are going to get your tau BD, and based on that here You can see here the workout is detailed workout is given. 1.4 is multiplied with 1.6, 60% increase per bar in compression. Okay, and then on the top of it you multiply with 1.25 because bar is in compression. So this is going to be your tau BD for this particular case, and based on that you calculate development length. So this is the quantity. This lap length is going to actually depend on this LD. Okay, development length. Now how can we reduce? This is a lap, means you need to one of the bar is going to lap over the other bar by this much distance theoretically. That is what code is recommended. But here the question is, can we reduce this length? Can we reduce this length? Okay, so that is what is illustrated here in this part of the question answer. Method of reducing lap length. Shorter lap length can be used with welding. Using a lap length of 15 times diameter together with lap welding at 5 times diameter intervals. Okay, so basically this is what is done. Let me show you the figure, then you will understand better. So let me show you the figure. I think a figure is there here. It's maybe it's not there. So let me try to explain using this. So this is forget about the spirals and other things. This is your lap length. So this is, imagine this bar to be 36 mm diameter bar. This 36 mm diameter bar, another 36 mm diameter bar. This is the lap length. This is the portion, or this length of this is going to be your LD. I want to reduce this. I want to reduce this LD to 15 times diameter of the bar. And whatever reduction in the lap length, that I want to compensate by welding at few locations. And what is the interval between the welds? You must have studied as a part of your steel design course how to do or how to calculate strength of weld and other things. Okay, so you need to you can weld at few locations. The welds can be separated by certain distance. So that is what is mentioned here. So using a lap length of 15 times diameter together with lap welding at 5 times the diameter intervals. So 15 times diameter of the bar. What is that length going to be? That you need to calculate. And out of this much, you already if you decide to provide 15 times diameter of the bar, that lap length is provided. Remaining lap length, for whatever remaining lap length that you are missing out, you need to compensate with weld. So the strength of the weld has to be calculated based on the missing lap length. Okay, so you can see here basically this development length turns out to be 32.2 times the diameter. 32.2 times the diameter, out of which we are planning to have a lap length of 15 times diameter. So 32.2 minus 15, that is 17.2 times diameter of the bar. This much lap length we are missing. So what is the force corresponding to this lap length? That we need to compensate with the weld. So that is what is calculated here. So if this is the lap length, you are missing, you need to calculate what is the strength corresponding to this, what is the force corresponding to this. So that is this is how it is calculated. This is maximum stress in the bar, 0.87 Fy times the area of cross section of the bar. If I had provided this 32.2 times diameter of the bar, then rebar is going to be having a stress of 0.87 Fy or 0.87 times 415, but I am providing only 17.2. So 17.2 divided by 32.2, you can see this calculation here. It's all self-explanatory. Okay. So this is the force to which we need to design the weld. So once you know the force that needs to be resisted by the weld, the dimensions and other things can be arrived at. So you provide a part of the, or you compensate part of the lap length using reduced lap length, and remaining part you compensate with the weld. That weld has to resist this force. Okay, so that's what it is mentioned here. The welds are designed to resist an equivalent force for the missing lap length. So this is how you can actually come up with a solution. This problem illustrates how to reduce the lap length using welds. Or if you use your creativity, you can come up with another solution. Instead of welding, you can come up with another solution, maybe spirals or even stirrups. But for that, you need to gain extra knowledge, which you may be, as a part of your advanced courses, you may be learning. Okay. So this is what we missed out in yesterday's class. This example I have not covered. So for completeness, I just wanted to go through this example in today's class. Any questions here? And please note that this is not the only solution. This is one kind of solution to reduce the lap length. Okay. So now let's go to design problem. Let's go through this problem statement. Reinforced concrete cantilever beam, rectangular cross section, 300 mm by 600 mm, is built into column of 500 mm wide. Okay, you need to take a note of it. Column section or column width is given, and this beam is actually framing into the column. This cantilever beam is actually it's supported on this column, which is having 500 mm width, and to get a like idea, a picture is given here. This is what. Please take a note of this. And when you are designing, you are going to encounter this kind of situation. This is more like a practical problem. Okay, the width of the column is 500 mm. And the section details of this cantilever beam, they are shown here. And the rebar, whatever reinforcing steel that is provided on the top as well as on the bottom, they are shown here. Please take a note of this problem. Professor Amlan, you want to add something?
No, you go ahead and then I will comment at the end.
Okay. So please take a note of this. Column section, column width is given and beam section dimensions are given. And our focus of this, whatever we are covering in this topic, our focus is only on the development length and bond and anchorage. So we are going to focus on that. And how to arrive at this steel and all those details, you already have learned about all those things. Okay. So now let's proceed to the problem statement. The cantilever beam is subjected to hogging moment of 200 kilonewton meter at the junction of beam and column. There is a typing mistake. At the junction of beam and column, at the face of the this column. Okay. Design suitable reinforcements in the beam and check for the required anchorage length. Here, sorry, actually, in this problem statement, it is also asked to design for the reinforcement. So that whatever reinforcement, 4 bars of 20 mm diameter, that details how to design that. That is also is going to be illustrated in this example. So you need to design the reinforcement and you need to check for the required anchorage. And grade of concrete, grade of steel is given. And these are the dimensions. Okay. B is the width of the beam. D is the assuming cover thickness of 50 mm from overall depth 600 mm overall depth. Effective depth is, after taking out the cover, it is taken as 550 mm, and the design moment is 200 kilonewton meter. Okay, so for this moment we need to design the beam area of steel. You need to go to annexure your IS 456. You need to go back to your design annexure G and try to make use of this relation and try to find the area of steel. And before that, please note that this equation is valid for under reinforced section. So we need to make sure our section is under reinforced. How to check whether the section is under reinforced or not? You need to go to limiting moment of resistance, because the dimensions of the section are given. Grade of concrete is given, grade of steel is given. So you can find what is limiting moment of resistance, and you compare the actual design moment to the limiting moment of resistance. If design moment is less than limiting moment of resistance, then you can design it as under reinforced section, and whatever equation that I just showed you, you can make use of it and try to find what is the area of reinforcement that is required. Okay, so that is all what is worked out here. You can go through this. Limiting moment of resistance is calculated, and it is checked whether the design moment is less than limiting moment of resistance or not. And once this check is passed, then it is under reinforced. Then I can safely make use of whatever equation that is given in annexure G for under reinforced section, and then calculate area of steel. And please note that this area of steel that you get, you need to actually, for completeness, you need to even check with minimum steel that you need to provide. Okay, let me show you that. Here, minimum tension reinforcement that you need to provide. Code is saying this is the minimum tension reinforcement that you need to provide. So when you are actually designing, maybe so far whatever you have designed, you have not checked that. Whatever area of steel that you get, you also need to check with minimum reinforcement requirement. And if this area turns out to be less than minimum reinforcement requirement as per the code, then you need to provide that, at least that minimum reinforcement. Okay. Anyway, that is just I want to cover that for completeness. Here the area of steel turns out to be this. So that is how this 4 bars of 20 mm diameter is arrived, and that is what is shown in the figure. Okay. And please know what is this one? What is this one which is shown on the bottom side? Please note that we need to provide the shear reinforcement, which is not shown here. Stirrups have to be provided. And so this actually, the purpose of this bottom reinforcement is to put these stirrups in place. Okay. So that is the reason. So the details of how this is worked out, that is not shown here. And now coming to this tension reinforcement, which is provided to resist the hogging moment of 200 kilonewton meter, we need to check for the anchorage length. Anchorage length is given by the development length formula, diameter of the bar times the stress in the steel divided by 4 times tau BD, taking appropriate value of this design bond stress. You calculate what is the development length that is required or anchorage length that is required. So you can see here, anchorage length that is required is 940 mm. 940 mm. Okay, please keep a note of it. 940 mm. 940 mm from the. So I need to embed. I need to make sure that this reinforcement. Please note, this is the junction of the beam and column, or this is the face of the column. Beyond this point, I need to anchor this bar, this tension reinforcement. Beyond this point, I need to anchor for 940 mm. But the width of the column is only 500 mm. Out of this 500 mm also cover is going to be there. And also please note that here the reinforcement in the column is not shown. Column is also going to have reinforcement, longitudinal reinforcement as well as stirrups. Okay. And so heavy congestion is going to be there. And also from anchorage point of view, you need to provide 940 mm beyond this point. So there is no space to provide 940 mm. So you need to make use of whatever you learn. Either you use like a 90 degrees bend, whatever you studied in the last class, or 180 degrees U-type hook you need to provide. So here it is illustrated in this example how to design this 90 degrees bend. Okay, 90 degrees bend. If I bend the bar by 90 degrees, I need to follow the specifications that are given. How to do this bending and other things, I need to follow the specifications that are given in the code, which are again given in this SP16. So I need to bend in this whatever bend I'm doing that for that 20 mm diameter bar, that has to be complying with this one, the radius of bend and other things. And also beyond this curved portion, I need to extend it minimum 4 times the diameter of the bar. And if I do this, the anchorage value of this, equivalent anchorage value of this is going to be 8 times the diameter of the bar. 8 times the diameter of the bar. Okay, so I have a straight portion. That portion length plus 8 times the diameter of the bar is what I get if I bend it like this, and minimum 4 times diameter of the bar, I ensure a straight portion. And let's say this straight portion along with this equivalent value of anchorage value of this bend together is not, still it is not making up whatever anchorage length that is required, then you need to extend this bar beyond this point. So that is what is done in this example. Okay, so let me explain with respect to this figure. So here, taking care of cover, other constraints, it is taken here only 400 mm is taken. 500 mm is the width of the column, but only 400 mm straight portion is considered. So I need to provide 940 mm anchorage length, and 400 is coming from here. if I do this 90 degrees bend, following whatever specifications that are given in the code, and ensure 4 times the diameter of this, minimum 4 times diameter of the bar straight portion beyond the curved portion, I can get an anchorage value of 8 times the diameter of the bar. 8 times 20 mm. That is what I get. So 400 plus 8 times the diameter of the bar. 400 plus 8 times 20 is what I get. But still it is falling short of 940 mm. So beyond that 4 times the diameter of the bar straight portion, I need to have some additional portion. So that is what this is, 500 mm. Okay. So all these calculation details are given here. You can go through it. So this is the anchorage length that is required. The bars are extended into column to a length of 400 mm and then 90 degrees bend. But this alone, this 400 mm straight portion, 90 degrees bend, is not going to compensate for 940 mm. So whatever additional portion that is required, you can provide that. So that is what is done in this example. Okay. So total anchorage length that is provided is 400 plus 8 times the diameter of the bar, plus in addition to that a straight portion of 500 mm. Is it clear? So this is how you need to come up with the solutions. Please note that all these kind of things, problems are going to arise on the site at the time of execution. Any questions here? And you can also make use of your SP16. Okay, I already showed you how to use 64, 65, 66 these tables. So with whatever explanation that is given, and also this anchorage values table 67, you can follow this one. This is all straightforward. Okay. So let me take 2 more examples and then we'll close this topic. Okay. And here, please note that when you are for these multi-storied buildings, the column sizes or the forces as you go to the top are going to get reduced, and the forces are going to be more at the bottom. So the sizes of the columns, either the sizes of the columns can be reduced as you go to the top, or you can reduce the reinforcement. So one way to maintain the column size uniform throughout the length, throughout the height of the structure, is to reduce the reinforcement as you go to the top. So that is what is illustrated here. Okay, a reinforced column subjected to compression combined with flexure is shown here. It is required to reduce the longitudinal reinforcement bar from 20 mm diameter in the ground floor to 25 mm diameter in the ground floor to 20 mm in the first floor. Design suitable lap splice. Please note that you are splicing 2 different diameters of the bar. Okay. The details are shown here, but you can actually they cut down this focus of this question. The question is 25 mm diameter of the bar is lapped with 20 mm diameter bar. 20 mm diameter bar is used from the first floor. 25 mm is used at the ground floor. Okay, and please note that how to do this lapping. You cannot have one bar in line with the other bar. You need to have a small, like you can see here, small bend is there here. And what should be the slope of this? All these are given in the specifications for detailing of reinforcement. Okay, here that is what is mentioned here. Slope 1:6 maximum. Okay, all these details you will be learning as a part of your advanced courses, or they're all given in the special publications and reinforcement detailing these kind of references. Okay, anyway, now let's focus on this. 25 mm bar needs to be spliced with 20 mm diameter bar. We need to design a suitable splice, and grade of concrete is given, grade of steel is given. Okay, as usual, making use of all this information, all this information. Please note that this column is undergoing or it's under compression along with flexion. So accordingly, tau BD is calculated. Tau BD is enhanced by 25%. Okay. Actually, here there is a small mistake in the sense the enhancement for the HYSD bars is not included. You can rework it out this one. Okay. Since this tau BD has to be 1.2 for M20 grade of concrete, it is 1.2. HYSD bars, it should be multiplied with 1.6, again 1.5. So you please rework it out properly, this portion. And based on this, lap length. At the location of splice, smaller diameters bars are adequate in providing the desired strength. If you are splicing two different sizes of the rebars, you need to consider the smaller size for calculating the lap length. Okay, smaller size for calculating the lap length. So that is what is done here. And LD is total lap length should be LD or 30 times diameter of the bar, whichever is greater. Where this is given in IS code here. Here, please note that this rebar is under compression as well as flexion. So that's why lap length shall be LD or 30 times diameter of the bar, whichever is greater. That is what is taken. Okay, it is taken from here. So that is the lap length. And once you get the lap length, splicing of the bars should be scattered here. Please see this figure. So whatever you just calculated, that is this lap length. Lap length is LD or 30 times the diameter of the bar. And all bars cannot be spliced at the same location, and you can have a staggered splicing, and the distance has to comply with this one, 1.3 times L. Okay, so that is what is calculated here. According to IS 456, here clause is also given 26.2.5.1. Splicing of bars should ideally be staggered with minimum center to center spacing of 1.3 L. L is your lap length. So finally, the recommended thing is That is what is shown here. This is your 20 mm diameter bar, 20 mm diameter bar, and this is your 25 mm diameter bar. Let me use the pointer. This is 20 mm diameter bar, 25 mm diameter bar. This is the lap length. And lap length for few of the bars, and if you still require this kind of lapping for other set of bars, you maintain a distance of this is 1560 mm staggered splicing. Okay. Any questions? One last example, and then we'll close this bond and anchorage. It's a doubly reinforced beam. Dimensions are given here, and it's built up into a column of it 600 mm. And the section of beam at the supports is reinforced with 3 bars of 16 mm diameter to resist hogging moment, 2 bars of 12 mm diameter on the compression side. FCK is given, Fy is given, design, detail, and detail anchorage length required at the junction of column and beam. So this is what. Anyway, we already discussed a similar kind of thing. You can actually go through this workout, and I think with the explanation that I gave you and how to do 90 degrees bend and then compensate for the anchorage length, all that details are given here. You can go through it. Okay. Only thing is here, both for the development length or anchorage length required, both for tension bars as well as for compression bars, they are worked out and they are checked here. They are worked out, and for compression bars, you need to anchor it over a distance of 500 mm. For tension bars, whatever width that is there here available is not enough to compensate for the full anchorage length. So you need to go for 90 degrees bend and then a straight portion. So that is what is illustrated. You can go through this. Okay, with this, I think we covered incomplete about this bond and anchorage. And with this, you should be able to solve assignment 6 last problem. Okay. And please submit your assignment by Monday, 2nd November. Monday's 2nd November, you can submit. Any questions here? So the next topic is going to be on the slabs. And before that, I just want to know if Professor Ramlan has any questions or any comments.
I would say no, you can start introducing the slab.
And I'm going to show you the corresponding annexure where the details for this are given. Annexure, what is that? Annexure G? Yeah, annexure D. Let's go through this one, and then details will go in the next class. Okay. Here, this annexure D is giving for slabs spanning in 2 directions. And a slab spanning in 1 direction, we already, if you know how to design these beams, slabs spanning in 1 direction can be designed as a beam of 1 meter width. And I think I illustrated that thing through one of the examples after completing the design of the beams. Okay, and we will see in detail in the next class. So This annexure is giving details or how to proceed with design of slabs spanning in two directions. And slabs spanning in two directions depends on design of that is going to depend on, you can see here, when the corners of the slabs are prevented from lifting. When corners of the slabs are prevented from lifting, they are called restrained slabs. They are classified as restrained slabs. And how to go about designing those kind of slabs, that is what is covered from here. D1.1, D1.1 to D1.11. That is covering, that covers or that gives you details for restrained slabs. Restrained slabs are nothing but when the corners are when the corners of a slab are prevented from lifting. And here, when simply supported slabs do not have adequate provision to resist torsion at the corners and to prevent corners from lifting. And this is for the case when the corners are prevented from lifting. And this D2.1, this portion is covering how to design for slabs in which there is no provision to prevent from lifting, to prevent from corner lifting. First of all, what is this corner lifting? Let's understand it. Let's understand that with the limited time we have in today's class. Okay. You can do a small experiment. Okay, you can do a small experiment. Please note that the slab, the behavior of slab is going to be similar to something like if I take a sheet of paper. Okay, imagine this is this slab, and this is suppose if this slab, if this you are supporting on all four edges and try to apply some load. How it is actually, how this is going to deform. It's going to deform in the way that is shown in the figure here. Okay, it's going to have some kind of bending in two directions, and it's going to have a shape of a saucer. So this is what is corners. When you have a simply supported slab, and when you apply the load, the corners are going to get lifted up. So Annexure D is giving you for two cases. When there is when you take there is a kind of provision to prevent the corners from lifting up, or when there is no provision to prevent the corners to lift up. Two cases. So that is the reason that two cases are there in that Annexure D. We'll go in detail in the next class. Okay. And when the corners are prevented from lifting up, you can just take a note of this figure. We'll see in detail in next class. Corners will lift up unless restrained. So that is the inherent behavior of this slab, two-way slab. And why these corners are lifting up? Because of torsion. So these corners gets lifted up. And when you hold these corners down, when you prevent these corners from lifting up, cracking is going to be developed. So to compensate for that, to compensate, to avoid cracking, we need to provide reinforcement. Corner reinforcement in slabs held down to resist the torsion, okay? So this figure is giving you some basic idea about the behavior of a two-way slab, and also helps you to understand the procedure that is given in Annexure D for calculating the reinforcement at various locations in the slab, as well as this corner reinforcement that code is recommending to provide. So this figures helps you to understand that. So please take a note of this figure. So here, as a part of design of slabs, we are going to look at two types of slabs: one-way slabs and two-way slabs. In two-way slabs, again, when the corners are prevented from lifting up and when the corners are not prevented from lifting up, both the cases we will be learning. So let me quickly go some some of the points related to the slabs, and more details we will see in the next class. So types of slabs. The most common types of structural element used to cover floors and roofs of buildings are reinforced concrete slabs of different types. One-way slabs are those supported on two opposite sides so that loads are carried along one direction only. Their behavior or their design is going to be similar to that of a beam. Whatever flexural reinforcement, how to design, whatever you learn for beams, those concepts can be extended for designing one-way slabs. One-way slabs are usually designed as a beam of 1 meter width. A common example of one-way slab is the veranda slabs spanning in the shorter direction with main reinforcements and the distribution reinforcements. Main reinforcement in the shorter direction, distribution reinforcement in the transverse direction. Distribution reinforcement is going to be the longer direction. So you are going to provide, the slab is going to bend in the shorter span, okay, along and then you need to provide reinforcement to take care of it. And in the other direction, we are going to provide some nominal reinforcement to take care of temperature effects and other things, and that is what is called distribution reinforcement. Okay, so in one-way slab you are going to have main reinforcement only in one direction. Two-way slabs are supported on all the four sides with such dimensions such that the loads are carried to the supports along both directions. Two-way slabs are common in floors of multi-storied buildings. Cantilever slabs are generally used for chedjas over windows and in balconies projecting from the buildings. T-beam slab floors. In T-beam slab floors, the slab is continuous over T-beams and designed as continuous slab with positive moments at mid-span and negative moments over the supports. So this is for continuous slabs, okay? Even in your classroom in IIT, in BSB, if you recall, and then if you just look at the flooring system, slab is actually continuous over the beams. Okay. So whatever that flooring system is going to act like a T-beam slab floor. In T-beam slab floor, the slab is continuous over T-beams and designed as continuous slab with positive moment at mid-span and negative moment over the supports. And we are not going to cover this, but in IS 456, it's also giving details about flat slabs. But for completeness, let's make a note of it. Flat slabs are generally multi-span slabs, which are directly supported on columns at regular intervals without beams. And if you see all the modern or the latest constructions, especially commercial complexes, you will be seeing these flat slabs without beams. In the case of basements where headroom available is limited, flat slabs can be conveniently adopted. Flat slabs are commonly used for garages where limited headroom is available. Anyway, we are not going to cover, as a part of this course, we are not going to cover the design of these flat slabs. Reinforced concrete slabs support, please take a note of this point. Reinforced concrete slabs supported on two opposite sides with their longer dimensions exceeding 2 times shorter dimension are referred to as one-way slabs. First thing is this slab, this reinforced concrete slab, supported on two opposite sides. It's supported on two opposite sides. You need to underline this. And also, longer dimension exceeding 2 times the shorter dimension are referred to as one-way slabs. And in next class, we will be looking into one-way slab. Whatever we covered, maybe we covered not in detail, but we'll see this in detail, one-way slab design as well as two-way slab design. Okay. Please note that in these slabs, we are not going to provide the shear reinforcement. So we need to check when we are checking the shear. Please note here, when we are actually looking at limit state of collapse under shear for beams, we did not look at these sections. Those sections we are going to look at in while designing for slabs. For solid slabs, design shear strength, which is coming from your table 19 or the equation that is given in SP16. The design shear strength, which is going to depend on grade of concrete as well as the percentage of tensile steel that is provided. For solid slab, you need to multiply with a factor K. K depends on the overall depth of the slab. Okay, so design shear strength of concrete, design shear strength for concrete is given by this, and you need to make sure the shear stress because of the load applied on the slab is not going to exceed this shear strength. And if it is exceeding, then you need to compensate it by revising the depth of the slab, because usually we are not going to provide shear reinforcement for slabs. Anyway, details we'll see as we progress in the next classes. Okay, so I'm planning to cover slabs and afterwards columns, and then footings. We may not have time to cover footings, so that's going to be the end of this course. Professor Amlan, you want to add something?
So I earlier mentioned that the slabs are the heaviest components in a building, and hence the thickness of the slabs adopted is small, so that the weight is reduced. And for that, it is not possible to provide stirrups within a slab. Hence, the shear capacity of a slab is based only on the concrete contribution. Okay.
Okay, see you next week. Okay, thank you.